If you talk the talk, you gotta walk the walk. I don't know what you thought, but I've been taught by Yahuwah, by Yahuwah. I say by Yahuwah, you know the all should die, and now y'all all should cry, because the real is back. I say the real is back. I took L's, that's facts, and yet still stand.
Shalom and greetings to all the Israelites out there and all of the strangers out there scattered abroad throughout the four corners of the earth. As always, I greet every last one of y'all in the one and only true name of the Honorable Abba Yahuwah. Now, today, I got a nice long message laid out for you all. But before I get into the message, I would first like to say that I hope that all of you out there that are Israelites, according to the flesh, and those of you out there who have joined yourself to the nation of Israel are rejoicing and are keeping your head high here in these last days, as we are beginning to see the manifestation of the prophecies that the Father spoke via the way his servants, the prophets. Okay, now, as I have explained to you before, here at K.O.I, we have the vision of this age. Okay, here in these last days, we have the vision. This is why it's important to make sure that you are locked in, because see, a lot of these false prophets out here that say they are messengers and sent from above, these people have not been sent by Yahuwah, okay? These people are preparing you for doomsday. You know, they're all in Revelations, getting you ready for the mark of the beast and all of this theater, all of this Greek mythology, okay? Not understanding the prophecies that are contained in Tanakh that still has to be fulfilled. Okay, this is why when you go into the New Testament, you know, to those of you that follow New Testament doctrine and the salvific son, when you go into the book of Matthew, chapter 5, he clearly tells you that the law is not going to be done away with until all be fulfilled. So how are we arriving at Revelations and all this other garbage, and there's still things in the book that hasn't been fulfilled? See, so this is how you know these guys have not been sent by the Most High. And here at K.O.I, we have the vision. We understand and know that the next thing that's on the roster to be fulfilled is the restoration of the nation of Israel. Okay, this is why they have gone out the way to try to hide our identity and all of this stuff, because they know what the prophecies say, just like we know what the prophecies say. You know, so it's going to be more of that to come on, here up the road. But when we see this stuff that's going on in Europe with these Europeans, okay, and then we see the things that's also when we see, and I'm trying to watch how I'm wording, because I don't want to trigger certain traps that they have set, listening for certain words. But at any rate, the stuff that's going on with the Europeans is also drawing in, you know, Islamic countries like Iran and Syria and, you know, all of these nations over there. So we know that we're moving into that time where the Father's getting ready to fulfill those prophecies when he said he's going to gather them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat down in there, and he's going to enter into judgment with them behind his people. Not spiritual Israel, but physical Israel. Okay, so just make sure you guys are locked in. It's going to be more of that to come up the road, but understand that we have the vision here. Okay, now, as you all know, okay, moving right along, you guys can see that I have been changing things over with the ministry. So we're no longer FOTW. Okay, we're now K.O.I. Okay, so now let's get into that so you guys can understand, you know, what's going on with that. Now, as I explained to you in my last video, I told you I was going to give you guys an update of everything that's kind of been going on since last year. I haven't really done any videos besides the last video I did, I think was like a month, maybe 2 months ago, just kind of letting you know that I haven't gone anywhere. So let me just get into that, give you guys an update, and then we'll just kind of transition through the lesson or through the update. So so the reason why I've been kind of gone like this is that back in December of last year, December 22nd, on my dad's birthday, he got sick. Okay, I spoke to him that day. He was good. Later on that night, I don't know what happened. He got sick, and I had siblings out there with him because my dad was living in Las Vegas. So they took him to the hospital. He was there, and he was running all these tests and stuff. And so they were saying that he had a slight touch of pneumonia in his lungs. And they said it was the plague pneumonia. And I'm not going to say that name because I know that they're listening. But they were saying that it was the plague pneumonia. So they basically gave him some antibiotics, sent him home, basically told him to quarantine, take the antibiotics, come back in a couple of weeks. Well, during those couple of weeks, he didn't improve, kind of like got worse. You know, we was kind of telling the family members that was out there to take him back to the hospital then, but they kind of wanted to wait and all this other weird stuff. So anyway, about time they took him, after the 2 weeks was up, and they finally took him to go see the doctor just to kind of see how he was doing. The doctor was like, oh man, he's not looking good. You need to take him to the hospital. So instead of them taking him back to the hospital that he initially went to and was diagnosed with the stuff, they took him to a whole nother hospital, and they kind of started the whole process over, trying to figure out this and that. So at any rate, he went into the hospital, and they rules and regulations as far as the hospital is concerned, back when all of this stuff was going on, was they pretty much would only allow one person come up there through the whole duration, and then you can only be up there a couple hours in the daytime from like 10 to 12, and then from 6 to 8. And other than that, you just, your people are at the mercy of the hospital. You know what's going on in there, you know. And it just seemed like when I got out there and was going up there, it seemed like he would be good in the day, but at night when nobody's there, it's, you know, it's phone calls, you know. So, but anyway, make a long story short, the family member that was out there, we told this individual not to put my father on the ventilator. The reason being is that you got to understand that these ventilators and life support is for people that are in bad accidents, that's almost dead, and they need some type of support just to keep them alive while the body try to heal, you know. And so, you know, they had told us that we got the call that my dad was doing good. They had got him out of ICU, and he was going to be going to outpatient somewhere to when they was getting ready to get him out the hospital. So a couple of days later, next thing we hear, he's on the ventilator, and we're like, well, who told him, you know, because nobody, you know, the family member that was out there never called the family and said, you know, this is what they're saying, what do we want to do, after we told this individual not to do that. So they put him on the ventilator. He pretty much from there, he never recovered. And so what you have to understand, and I want to tell you guys this because this plague stuff hasn't gone anywhere. You need to know this, because whenever your loved ones get sick, you're not really, you just kind of, you know, you just focused on what's going on at the time. But what they do is they put them in an induced coma, okay? And so what they do is they paralyze the body where the organs and stuff can't move, and they heavily sedate your loved ones. So these people are pretty much heavily sedated. They're not out, they're not dead, barely living, they're just paralyzed. And then they, you know, got this feel good stuff in them, and they can't move, and it looks like they just, you know what I'm saying? So what they have to do is that when they paralyze you, none of your organs and none of your body, none of this stuff is moving. So what they have to do is they have to artificially make your heart pump, and they give you all of this blood pressure medication to make the heart pump all this, you know, to make the blood pump, because everything is restricted, nothing is moving. But you got to keep the blood kind of flowing through the body. And so eventually, you know, my dad, his heart gave out. You know, they had him on like 3 or 4 different blood pressures they kept, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah, so he ended up passed in February 16th. And another thing that they were doing, and you got to know this stuff, you know. So like, if they're saying, okay, well, your family member has the plague and they died from the plague, they have to pay you, have to pay the family. So what they do is, to get around that, is they say it's the plague related, but then they die from, you know, dehydration or heart failure, you know, all of this different stuff, so that on the death certificate, it don't just say plague, it says all this other stuff, you know, because I kept asking, I'm like, well, you're saying that it's not the plague, you don't know what's going on, why do y'all still got them down here under, you know what I'm saying, plague restrictions and all this other stuff? But we just need to, so it's just, it's money, you know, it's all it is, you know. So anyway, he would go on to pass in February, and then he wasn't laid to rest until June, because then we had issues with the family, with the siblings, where, you know, you have people who want to be in positions of power. They don't have the resources, they don't have nothing but mouth, can't get nothing done. And so the process kind of got held up because all of the rest of the family wanted me to kind of take care of everything except for this one person, that couldn't get nothing done, and just, all of this weird stuff. And so you have to understand, when there's no will or no power of attorney in place, okay? Now, my dad had life insurance, but he didn't have any will or any power of attorney in place. And so what happens when that's not in place, these institutions can't favor one person over the other because they can be sued, and so, the funeral home is just kind of like, y'all gotta have to kind of go to court. If y'all can't figure it out, then y'all gonna have to go to court, and we have to get a court order because this is the only way we can move. And the lady was kind of telling me that they can hold those bodies in disputes like that. They can hold them at the funeral home for years until everything get settled if need be, if it takes that long. So I was just like, wow. But make a long story short, he was eventually put to rest in June of this year. Okay. And so why am I telling you this? Okay. I'm not telling you this for backpacks or hugs, or I want people to feel sorry for me, nothing like that. I'm telling you this because if you are a parent, okay, and you have children, it is your job to make sure that you have all of these things in order so that when you leave, it can be a smooth transition. Okay. Because what happens is that too often over here, people are just living, and it's not all families, okay? But a lot of these families are just living until it's time to die, and then it's just like, well, I'll just let the family deal with it. And you do your family a disservice not to have these things in place, because what happens is you have certain family members that do not have their lives in order. Okay, and the only thing they're worried about is what mom or dad got for me. They want to know, where all of the money at, and what's this and what's that, and where, what I'm saying, versus worrying about the family members' well-being. Okay, these people are just vultures waiting on you to drop to get whatever they can get out of the deal. And so you gotta have these things in order. Okay. When I was running insurance some years back for a little bit, one of the things that I would notice is that as I would go into a lot of these different households with a lot of these different families, it's like people are living to the end. They don't have anything in place, and then they just leaving this stuff on behalf of the family. If you don't have money and stuff put up, make sure you have some life insurance. Because you're going to leave your family in a bad situation. Then they got to go do GoFundMes and do all of this stuff to try to get money, because you have not done your due diligence. And as a parent, and if you have children, you need to do this. That's why I told my mom, make sure all your wills and all of that stuff is together, because we ain't going through that no more. That's it. So if you have parents that are up in age, make sure you sit down with them, because one of the things that I also found out is that a lot of people do not like to sit down and talk with their parents about death. And then what happens is that if, say your family and them have life insurance, when they die, the insurance company don't just reach out and contact people and say, oh, we got a check for you for this and that. Whoever the beneficiary is has to call them and tell them, so-and-so passed. And they're going to say, okay, basically send us the death certificate, because they have to verify the death. Once they verify the person is dead, then they're going to cut the check. But if nobody ever reaches out to them, they just hold on to that money. So a lot of these insurance companies are holding on to a lot of money because family members didn't tell their kids, or whoever was responsible for them, that they have life insurance. And so they might have went out and paid for it with their own money, not knowing that they had that they had insurance and stuff. So make sure that you sitting down, especially if you got family members, mother, fathers that's older, sit down with them and make sure all of their stuff is in order. We're all going to transition out of here someday, and we have to start being responsible. Make sure their wills are together. Make sure they have a power of attorney. That way, if something happens to them, they have somebody that's responsible legally that can take care of make decisions for them. Because if not, it's going to be a problem, and these institutions are not going to favor one family member over the other if there's no documentation. So to alleviate that, just have all the paperwork and documents in place. So